Hello and welcome back to the Estranged development blog series. In the last video I showed you the weapon system at a kind of very high overview level. This video I'm going to show you iron sights, which was recently released in an update for Estranged, and how it works in code, which is actually quite simple. So if we unequip this weapon from the guard, in fact let's just delete the guard, then we play here, we equip this weapon. You can see that when I right click, I can then use the sights of the weapon to fire. So that's all the system is really. It's just removing the crosshair and moving the view model to the center of the screen so you can use the actual weapon to aim. So it's not that difficult to implement as well. This was actually quite a very nice feature, quite self-contained to implement. So let's show you from the blueprint side first. So if I go and edit this Beretta, now you've got here two variables: normal view offset, view model offset, and the aiming view model offset. And these only apply when this is equipped by the player character, because if this is equipped by a third-person character, you know, this is equipped by a guard or something, this obviously doesn't apply at all, because it's all driven by sockets when it's attached to a different character. So this is very, very simple. This is the normal view model offset. This is the offset when we've just got it equipped. And the other offset is the offset that it will translate itself to when we right click. So if I were to change this to something ridiculous, so let's make this 60 instead of minus 25, you'll see that this should be interesting. You'll see that the weapon fires off into the distance. That's very interesting. Let's try doing that to 250 just because I want to see what that looks like. Very, very weird. Very weird. Yeah, no, that's the worst iron sight system ever. So if I go and reset that back to 25, that's the normal amount. So this is happening in code. In the ESD player, there are a few methods here that update things when we tick. So ticking is every frame for the player, and this is one of the things that gets updated. So there's the camera, there's the flashlight, because that has some special animation that it does. There's the actor that you're holding, there's post-processing for depth of field, and there's this view model tick. So if you go here, you can see that the first thing we're doing is we're changing the visibility if the player is not the view target. So in other words, if we're viewing the player through a different camera, then don't show the view model. That happens in cutscenes, for example. If you've got a camera that's kind of doing a wake sequence or something, you don't want to show the player arms. Also, when the player dies, a bit weird to show the arms because they don't really animate with your death. So we just hide those straight away. So here's the conditional logic. If we have a weapon, if we should holster it, then make the weapon holster. You'll see these methods were mentioned in the last video. This basically plays the holstering animation. I'll do a quick demo of that actually. Even though we're doing iron sights here, I'll show you the holstering. So there's the holstering. So if you go near an object, it's just doing that trace constantly, and it'll just hide it so you don't bump into it. But here is the very, very simple iron sights code. So you see that target offset is being pulled from whether we're aiming or not. Aiming is a variable set when we right click. So that's tied to that right click action, which is secondary attack. The equipped weapon, get the aiming view model offset. So that's the thing I just showed you in blueprints, or the normal view model offset. So that's our target offset. And then we just say, well, the new transform is that. We use this transform interpolate too, so you give it the current relative transform there from the view model mesh, the target, which is that target we've just set, the frame time, and the speed you want to interpolate it. So I've actually put this into a variable because it's fun to tweak this stuff and very easy to do it in the editor. So if I go over to my player blueprint here, put it in a nice window for you. So aim interpolation speed, if I set that to 1, That's going to look very weird. Let's have a look. Play. In slow motion, it interpolates now, which is very, very rubbish. Yeah, we don't want that. But anyway, that's configurable in there because it's set as a variable. And then we just set that transform. If we don't have the weapon, we're resetting the transform. I need to make this not as expensive. It does not need to do this every frame. Disregard this, please. That's bad. I'm also going to show you the post-processing because there is a little bit of depth of field. There's an implication for the depth of field anyway when we do this, because we don't want to really focus on anything other than the... I need to reset that. That's ridiculous. There you go, back to 18. So we want to kind of disable depth of field because when we're aiming, it's important. And you'll notice that there is also a little bit of vignette around the edges of the screen, just to help us focus a little bit. So the depth of field actually makes the weapon, sorry, it doesn't make the weapon blurry, it makes your hand a little bit blurry. So that's what you're seeing there. So how does that work? Well, if you're aiming here, it sets the depth of field, specifically wants to focus it at this unit with this near depth of field size and disables far depth of field. Otherwise, just use the normal depth of field values, unless of course you've disabled it, in which case it gets disabled. The vignette is the same. If we're aiming, set it to this, otherwise set it to half, plus whatever we get from the health component. The vignette is built up if you have lower health. So that is basically the iron sight system. There's not a lot to it. It's quite a simple thing to implement, but actually the effects are quite good. So future work on this is to make the aiming more accurate when you're in this mode, because you know the thinking is you're concentrating harder, so your spread should be adjusted. But actually, if you saw the last video, you'll see that the base blueprint for firearm weapons has the fire bullet method in it, so making it more accurate is just a case of tweaking this spread value depending on whether we're aiming or not. And because we've got we could get the player character, we'd have to cast for it, but anyway, that's for a future video perhaps. So that's the iron sight system, Estranged. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments or email me. I'm Alan at alanedwards.com. Thank you very much for watching.